And this morning, we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to have some men and young men come forward to testify and declare and proclaim what God has recently done at our most recent gathering, our Father-Son retreat. This happened last weekend, and when it was first proposed, I was excited. Great idea, awesome. As the day grew closer, I did not want to go. I have a lot of work. I'm very busy. I'm very tired. I'm not in the mood. I definitely don't want to go camping, and I most certainly do not want to go hiking up a mountain. Oh, wait, no. He has 2 hikes planned. Oh, yeah, this is great. No, I did not want to go, and I was prepared just to pay the money, eat the cost. I don't want to go. There's so much more other things to do. Now, I feel like Peter. Peter had denied the Lord 3 times. He had not been restored yet, so I'm kind of guessing he wasn't feeling all that great and wasn't in the mood. And he decided to go fishing, and he fished all night long, and he caught nothing, and I'm sure that added to his perturbedness. And then someone on the shore calls out, "Hey, did you catch anything?" "No." "Well, why don't you throw your net onto the other side?" "Oh, the other side, that's I'm 5 feet off." And that's how I felt. I feel like I didn't want to go, but I cast my net on the other side. And the haul of fish that I took in is just beyond what I could have imagined, what I had expected. And this morning, I want to share with you one of the fish that were caught in my net from this weekend. You'll notice on your music handout, there is a picture on the back. What is it? It's an acorn. This is a teaching that Bob Eberly gave. Eberly, I'm having trouble pronouncing, but a teaching Bob gave us, and it just spoke to me. What is it? It's an acorn. Well, what's inside of that acorn? If we were to cut that acorn, we'd find some kind of hard, pulpy substance. And at that point, the acorn's really only good for food, for deer, for squirrel, even woodpecker. Don't feed it to your dogs, it's poisonous. But what is also inside of that acorn? If that acorn were to be planted, allowed to die, it would bring forth an oak tree, right? But actually, what else? There's more to that acorn. It's not just an oak tree, but it's a forest of oak trees in that one acorn. In fact, it's a forest of forests of oak trees in that one acorn, because that one acorn will bring forth an oak tree. And an oak tree is not just a tree, but it's also considered a shrub because it spreads its branches. And an oak tree can live for up to 1,000 years, producing almost 10 million acorns. 10 million oak trees, creating 10 million more oak trees. And the teaching was profound because we see that this is our lives. As we go about our lives, we're planting. We are sowing. And as we sow unto the Lord, as we plant the seeds of the gospel, as we plant the seeds of God's character in someone else to reveal and proclaim what he is doing amongst us, we're planting seed. And if we, by faith and in faith, step into the works of being planters, of being sowers, then with every professing believing, those who claim the name of Christ, but more importantly, are claimed by Christ, step into the works of planting and sowing, seed upon righteous seed, bringing forth fruit. It is then that truly the whole earth will be filled with his glory. The weekend was fantastic, and this teaching was outstanding. And you know, that's what Jason did. Jason, with a passion for God, for Christ, for the gospel, and a passion for community, he stepped out in faith into that works, and God used him as the vessel to make that Father's Day weekend happen, the Father-Son retreat happen. And Jason and Bob made a mess. They dropped seed everywhere last weekend. And we don't see that oak tree come to fruition. But right now we are reaping what others have sown before us. And the same thing will hold true now, that the next generation will reap what we sow. And then the next generation and the next generation. So we are in James. It's been talked about being doers of the word and of stepping out in faith to do those good works. We were all blessed from that weekend, and again, for the work that was done. And again, Jason was available with a passion and a heart. He was available, and God worked just a wonderful time. And the great part is, I hope someone's sharing it, but it also wasn't without its trials for Jason. And that, I think, is actually a really beautiful part of the story. So that's what I wanted to share. I'm still sorting out the fish that were caught in my net. It was a glorious time, and it was a simple step out and to participate. The Lord took over from there. And I just want to thank my brother Jason. I want to thank my sister Kristen, the Lee family, everyone involved. And I look forward to seeing the fruit that comes forth from this. I'm confident that we're going to see some glorious things. So I just want to pray for right now, if I can. Heavenly Father, Lord, we are the clay, you are the potter, and we are your workmanship. Have your way in us in the name of Christ. Amen. I want to invite Eric up. Oh, that's not good.
So it was a great weekend. It feels like forever since I've been here. We took vacation, that skipped 2 weeks, and then it was a father and son. And then this weekend, my wife and kids are away, so it's been a long time since we've been together. In Mark chapter 6, the apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour and told him all that they had done and taught. And Jesus said, "Let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest a while." He said this because there were so many people coming and going that Jesus and his disciples didn't even have time to eat. So they left by boat for a quiet place where they could be alone. And those of you that know me know that I just work and work and work and go and go and go and serve and serve and serve. And it's very difficult for me to shut down and just take a break. And the last few weeks, God has allowed me to do that. I've been in places with no cell reception, done things where it just doesn't make sense to have technology. And I was away on vacation with all my family. So I've had 3 weeks where that has been a theme, a recurring theme. And this weekend was fantastic because we got to, yes, we had experiences and adventure, and some of the kids did cliff jumping. I'm too old for that at this point, I think. But some of the guys did it. But it was nice just to sit back and relax, experience God's creation. But the other thing that happened while we were resting, we were conversing and sharing our faith and sharing our lives together. And over again, we'd be sitting around the campfire, and I would just sit and listen. And I'd have a gospel conversation going on over here and one here. And it was a lot with the adults, but there were times where the kids were getting involved too. And that's one of the main things that we wanted. We wanted to have fun with our boys. We wanted to get out and enjoy life and do some adventurous and crazy things. But we also wanted them to see what gospel in life looked like and what it means to be a man of God. And so for me, it was a good time to go away with my boys and just rest like Jesus did with his disciples. The problem is that if you follow this next verse, what happens? Jesus got to the other side, and there's people. He didn't even get to experience that respite. But the mindset that he had was, we need a time away. We need a chance to rest and recoup. And that's what this weekend was for me with my boys. And obviously, life continues and it gets busy again. But hopefully that's a theme that the men that went, the boys that went, can go back to and realize you've got to balance your life. You've got to realize that it's not all about what you're doing. Sometimes it's about sitting and talking or sitting and being quiet and allowing God to minister to your heart. So that's what I walked away with. It was a great time. And again, thanks to the Berubis. Thanks for Dan Anderson for starting this idea way back when. I remember when we first moved up here, he asked me, I think it was that first summer, to go as the preacher. I didn't have any kids at the time. I didn't have any boys. But I went and I got to experience fatherhood through some of the guys that were there. It was a really good experience. So that was my week. I hope some of the other guys get to share and enjoy, show what they got to do also. Thanks.
Oh, you got a fan too. Wow. So I was probably like Ed. I was excited about the concept about going, and I have experienced Dan Anderson, going up to Dan Anderson's place. So that was and Jason's been talking about this for probably a year or so, that we need to like reestablish something that we feel like we lost, but we don't really have to lose it. And it's up to us, really, to take those little steps of faith. And it was interesting because Bob Emberley, his message was on, a lot of it was on really we see chaos in the world, there's confusion, there's turmoil within our souls. We're constantly wrestling with our own thoughts, our own demons, our own struggles of why are we here? What is this existence for? Yes, we're believers. We know that there's a greater place to come. But sometimes what happens is we let all the negativity of the world around us and our own self-talk really take us to a place where we're almost, I want to say useless, but we're so caught up in our own lives and our own difficulties that we forget that there is a greater picture going on right here, right now. And one of the things he brought out was Bob shared with us just his own struggles in the church, his own struggles in his own family. And I won't get into it, but Bob adopted 2 boys. One of them really put his house in a lot of turmoil. And trying sometimes to understand what God is doing, and almost sometimes can drive you mad. And yet, what I got out of Bob's messages were God has stripped him in a way that what he really sees now is just the love of God. And it's almost like all the chaos all around him doesn't even matter anymore. But what matters is that God's love is a lot like that little seed and that acorn that Ed was talking about. That God's love is actually working in our hearts, and those little tiny things that we don't always think are accomplishing something. God's got a future plan for that he can take that and grow that into a forest. And so it was good for me. The whole thing, all of it was good. Having the boys around us and just having time to be with each other and hang and do fun things. Because honestly, we had probably a 15-minute devotional in the morning and a 15-minute devotional in the evening. And the rest of the day it was meals, hanging out, going for a hike, going to find some place to swim. We climbed the mountain. We went up to North Conway. It was just hanging with each other. So little groups of conversations probably is what it really was. Something that was probably more common in years gone by, this idea of father, son, and connecting with our kids in a way that we're trying to build memories, build adventure, and build opportunity to really listen to each other. So I would say those are some of the things I get out of it. Was just just hearing other people, and even Michael Ortley, Jason's brother-in-law, was there with his 4 boys. Just watching Michael and getting to know Michael a little bit was really cool. Seeing how he interacted with his boys and the time he puts into his families was very evident. His care, So it kind of came at you in a lot of angles. I didn't have anything planned, but Jason was just pushing me to come up here. But I'm just sharing with you, I was blessed, but I was blessed in a sense more like just a reminder. And then also, like I said, really being reminded again that God's love may not always look like we want it to look. And sometimes hardship is a lot like that little seed in the ground. And you're not always sure where it's going, and you're not always sure what the point of it is. But what we need to see is that, and our confidence needs to be in that God is more loving than we could possibly comprehend, and we don't have to see it, and we don't have to understand it all. And that's actually freedom. There's some freedom in that. And so I think the whole picture for me was just it was just a time of rest, a time to maybe open myself up again to the thought that God really is a loving God. And even though I can't always see it and comprehend it, and then just being able to understand my own love for my own boys, and then watch these other fathers with their boys. And I saw it with Ed, and his wherever Ed was, like the boys are always with Ed, and I just it was kind of nice seeing fathers with sons and how they interact. So that's it, Jason.
So I didn't really have anything like planned. This is kind of spur of the moment. But one of the things that I like found most valuable about the trip was like the time we got to spend with each other, like as a family. And I'm sure we did a lot of stuff together. Like we went cliff jumping, we hiked, well, some of us hiked a mountain. Some of us quit halfway. But so yeah, we did a lot of physical stuff together, but the most valuable times were around that campfire, or like for my brother and my dad and me, it was like staying up, I think midnight, 11:30 or whatever, just looking up at the stars and satellites and just enjoying God's creation and talking and hanging out with each other. So yeah, that was the most valuable for me, just hanging out together as a family. And yeah, it was good to get to know each other and God a little bit better. Yeah. What?
Shoot, I don't really know what to say, but it was a nice time growing up. I got to spend some good time with my dad and my brother. I also got to spend some good time with everyone else, and I got to do some fishing with Logan. And I really liked the message Bob had to share with us, that God's love is so great and that we can't really always understand it, but it's still always there. And that we won't ever really be able to fully understand it. And it's just something that's always going to be there for you, and it's never going to go away. And yeah, I really just had a great time up there with everyone. It was fun hanging out, and yeah, that's all I really have to say.
Okay, so I'll give some backstory to Andrew's thing, because that was still like the most, I don't know, it was the best part for sure. Like just hanging out at night. But the weeks before the whole thing, there was like not communication issues, but communication wasn't like mint in our house, you know? So I don't know, that helped, because at night we just like, okay, so you know how like to have a good conversation with someone, you gotta like sit quiet for 10 minutes and then something will pop up, and then the next like 2 hours will be great. So we never like took the 10 minutes. It'd just be like, hey, how's your day? Good. And then, they'd walk off and it'd just be the rest. But with the at night thing, we'd just sit down and like look at the stars, and then conversations would pop up, and it was really good. And we just chilled for like 3 hours. So it was really good. Yeah.
All right. So one thing is, right before the trip, brother Ethan, he got a fever, and everything was all packed up, all ready to go, and then all of a sudden there was a question of whether we're gonna go or not because people are dying around here, sorta. So uh, he got tested for the virus, and thankfully, right in the nick of time, around I think it was like 5 o'clock, he tested negative, so we were able to go. We just get there right before they were closing. Otherwise, we may have not been able to go until the next day or not at all. So that was a slight relief because I was really looking forward to this trip. So I'm happy that we were able to go. Um, what else? I really liked, cooking with everyone. That was fun. The last day, Jason and I, we were cooking up the steaks for everyone. Everyone seemed to like our steaks. What else? I really like going up on the hike. It was fun seeing the top of the mountain, looking over the valley. And it's nice to see that my Grandpa Bruby came up with my Uncle DJ. It was nice to see them up there. And yeah, that's about it. Few memories I wanted to share. First of all, watching Nathan and Andrew jump off 40-foot cliffs was just awe-inspiring to me. I saw the glory of God and the fearlessness of these young guys. And then Ed jumps off the 15-foot cliff, and I thought, I got to at least do that. And I did the 15-foot, and that was scary enough. So I was amazed to watch some of these young guys backflip over 40 feet into the water. It was just awesome. Jason and Logan cooking steak so good almost made me cry. The food was so good up there. That was really fun. But I was talking to my sister this last week because I wanted to see what my cousins thought about this trip. I'm an outdoor dog. I like to be outdoors running after animals and getting dirty and being in the sunshine, the water. My nephews are kind of indoor dogs. They like computers and internet and video games. So for them to be outside their comfort zone was interesting. So I asked my sister, what did they say was the best part of the trip? And she said, oh, definitely being at the top of Willard Mountain overlooking Crawford Notch. They thought that was unbelievable. I said, what was the worst part of the trip? She said, climbing the mountain. And I intentionally picked what I thought was a really easy climb. It's 1.6 miles to the top. You can get up there in an hour or less. Not a big deal. But I come to find out that some people think an hour hike is a big deal. And that was kind of fun. So, doing a hard thing actually had some really great rewards. I talked to Corn. I know he wouldn't want to come up today, but I asked him on the way here, what was the best part of the trip? He said, when I jumped off that little cliff face into the water. I said, what was the worst part? He says, staring at the water, being ready to jump. So you see there's a theme here, right? I think for Bob Emberley, he's not a camper, sleeping out in a tent, but coming up here and sharing his heart after going through months of really hard depression. I think that was hard for him, but yet I think he was blessed and we were blessed by him. So there's this theme that do hard things in life. For me, the hardest thing was honestly the night I was on the computer and I gave my credit card to the campground, not knowing if any of this was going to work out. With COVID issues, it was really hard to even get campgrounds to take reservations because the governor had closed the campgrounds up until recently. And then I knew these places were going to fill up fast. I wasn't sure about people's commitment. So when I first took that step of faith, and that step of faith was based on an acorn that Dan Anderson had sowed years ago. We loved Dan Anderson's camp father-son retreats. They were really big shoes to fill. I didn't really feel like I was competent to do what he did, but I had a lot of help from a lot of people. Even his wife, Deb Anderson, stepped up and gave me food lists and gave me advice. We were on the phone once and she was sending emails of this is what you can prepare for. These are the logistics of how much ice to bring, how many drinks to bring, how many pounds of steak per person, how many forks and napkins. I mean, there is an army of logistics in putting a thing like this together. And then it even ended with me going to her house like the day before and picking up coolers that she had had. And these were the same coolers that I remember seeing years ago at the father-son retreat. So even though Dan is in glory now. His fight is over. He is in rest. I hope that maybe he got a chance to maybe glimpse and see some of the fruit of the acorn seeds that he planted years ago. I'm very thankful for him. So the hard thing for me was just taking the step in faith to do this. And then as Logan had discussed a few minutes ago, when you put this much work and effort into something and then you find out the day before that you may not be able to go, that really was a test of my faith. I was pretty okay with it because I've been in this situation. We seem to have this funny tradition that God puts in our household where people get sick the day before the day of vacations. And I've just come to realize, okay, God, I'm going to release this. I don't like it, but this is your will. I remember one year I was on my way to a 3-day motorcycle trip and I crashed my motorcycle head over handlebars a mile from the church where we were going to meet to go on our trip. So God has a way of putting monkey wrenches in my plans. And for whatever reason, that's for his glory and my good. So I was okay with this. I realized we may not be able to go. Eric came and picked up all the food. And I know that the trip was in good hands. I didn't have to be there. I did all the planning. But Jay, Eric, Ed, good guys. I trusted them. They can run this thing without me. Bob's going to be there. So I was okay with it, but I still wanted to go. So we find out Ethan has to go get a COVID test. It's going to happen today. Beautiful. We'll know plenty of time whether I can go. Then they give us the result. They say, I'm sorry, the tests, we're out of tests. We have to wait till tomorrow afternoon. Now, tomorrow afternoon is the afternoon we're already supposed to be in the car leaving. So I'm like, okay, this is great. So we pack up the truck as much as we can. I'm laying on my bed waiting for the phone call to come in that he's yay or nay. He gets back. Oh, they haven't given it. They were supposed to give us a test in 45 minutes, but now they're saying it could be 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. Now I can feel my anxiety starting to rise. But I'm like, okay, God, you want me to be patient. We'll keep waiting. 2 or 3 hours pass. Finally get a phone call saying, your test came back negative. Right, John? Ethan's like, I'm not John. I'm Ethan. Oh, we're giving you the results from the wrong person. I'm sorry. We'll have to call you back later. Now I am over the edge. I'm getting upset. I'm really getting angry. I'm like, God, give me a yes or no. I don't like the waiting game. And as you realize already, you know the end of the story. God came through an hour later saying, you're okay to go. And as soon as we got that call, Logan and I and Corn were in that truck and blazing up north, getting in just in time. And I just realized how weak we are, how we think we're strong. We think we are okay with God's control, but he puts one little twist and one little wrinkle in the plans, and I just lose it. I get frustrated. And I was really encouraged because even Bob in some of his messages was stating how there were times in his life when he raised his fist at God, and yet he still moves to God, knowing that God is the beginning and the foundation of love, grace, and goodness. And I'm thankful for that. So hard things often result in great things, and I'm thankful for the trip, thankful for everyone's hard work, all the women that prepared the food, and couldn't have been done with all of us. So